What is up, everyone? So today we're reacting to Tara Green again. First off, shout out to Tara Green. Second of all, the videos we're going to be reacting to by Tara Green are I flipped 100 rocks in exotic jungle. Here's what I found. And also $1 first $100,000 pet fish. So let's go with this one first.
Online auditions for aspiring actors, singers, dancers, and models.
This is a $100,000 real pet shark tank. You literally have to feed them chunks of meat. And I'm going to show you how people care for pets like this, along with tons of other prices of aquatic pets, all the way down to a literal $1 pet axolotl. Yup, I just found this listing for $1 axolotl.
It looks so weird. I don't know why it looks so weird, but it does.
But you didn't know axolotls usually cost a lot more than $1, so I'm like worried, is this thing gonna be in bad condition or something? I don't know, but let's go investigate. So I drove to the seller's house, which thankfully wasn't too far. When I got there, he said he didn't want to be on camera, but he showed me the axolotl tank, and he told me why they were only $1. Apparently his pet axolotl had way too many babies, and inside of this tank was one of the last babies he hadn't sold yet. So I quickly scooped it up into a bucket I brought with clean water, packed it in my car, and drove home. Alright, I made it, and I'm a little worried about this axolotl's condition, because it didn't really seem like it was being kept in the best condition. You doing alright, little buddy? Let me just scoop you up, and we can get a closer look at this guy. And unfortunately, my suspicions were correct, because when I took a closer look at the body of this baby axolotl, I noticed its front right hand was missing. If you look over here, this is what it's supposed to look like, but yeah, I guess this hand must have accidentally got cut off because of how fragile baby axolotls are. Dang, that actually sucks. We gotta help this guy, and thankfully, I got just a plan. You see, I've got these things that when we plop into water, they turn into tons of little bloodworms. These are some of the most nutritious and also delicious foods for a baby axolotl, so I sort of just made it rain bloodworms on this guy, which you can see he absolutely started to devour up. If you didn't know, axolotls are extremely amazing in that they are one of the only animals that have the ability to regenerate limbs when they lose them. And by eating these bloodworms, this guy will now have the nutrients to do that very same thing for his hand. Yo, for $1, this thing might be my favorite pet. It's so cute. Oh my gosh. And I would learn, apparently this baby axolotl was even cooler than I thought. And in order to see that, I got out this quite a bit larger tank, and I started to lay down the floor of his new home. Even though our axolotl is so small and just a baby, they grow at a rapid pace, so in only a few months, this whole tank will be getting used up. And for the decorations, literally, we're just gonna use this big piece of wood and a few aquatic plants I had laying around in my garage. Yep, that's it. We're done. You see, baby axolotls have skin that can scrape super easily, and since ours is already missing a hand, I just wanted to keep ours super simple till he gets a bit bigger. But oh my gosh, he's so cute, and I think he's ready to go inside. So I let this baby loose into his brand new home. Instantly, he loved it, and you can just see how much he was swimming around and checking out his new enclosure. Yep, that's one thing about baby axolotls. They're just way more active than adult axolotls usually are. Wait, I have something fun I want to try. What if I put some worms near the axolotl's face? Am I able to make it follow the direction of the worms? Wait, he kind of is. Yep, I kind of just thought it would be funny to make the axolotl follow my tweezers like it was a fishing lure, basically. And surprisingly, he actually followed it for quite a long time, up this log, but eventually he got bored and swam away. But yeah, it was kind of fun to lure him around this tank in random directions, and every now and then, I would let him have a big old bite of the worms because he was just so cute to watch eat. Let me know in the comments what I should name this guy, and if I should make an update video once his hand is healed. But remember, I'm still going to show what it's like to keep a $100,000 pet shark, along with so many other price points of fish. Next up being $100 pet shrimp. Yeah, you may be thinking, how does a bag of shrimp cost $100? Well, I don't just have one bag or two bags. I have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bags of shrimp, and we're going to be able to do some crazy time lapses since we have so many shrimp here. Yeah, apparently keeping an insane amount of shrimp in the same tank is something lots of people into aquariums do because shrimp are some of the best cleaners of all time. And they'll just constantly explore around the tank, eating any dirt or algae that would make the water dirty. These ones in specific are called cherry shrimp because they have a red color in their body like a cherry. Yup, it's pretty creative.
So, first off, axolotl is pretty cute. Never heard of bloodworms a day in my life. Second of all, cherry shrimp's a very creative name.
Name, if you ask me. Now, before we get out a piece of steak to feed to these guys and record on a time lapse, let's work our way up the food scale and start with shrimp pellets, which I bought these thinking they were shrimp food, but on here it says they're actually for fish. So I'm thinking maybe these are just made out of shrimp. They're not actually for shrimp, but I guess we can still try and see if they'll eat it. Let's just start by dropping in one of the pellets. Now, immediately after dropping this single shrimp pellet in, one of the nearby shrimp basically pounced onto it. Dang, I guess these shrimp like eating shrimp, because soon after another one also came straight onto it. You can kind of see in the zoomed in footage how they used their tiny little mouths to break up this little pellet and eat it. But yeah, over the next couple minutes, this single pellet started to get swarmed by every single shrimp that saw it. Yeah, started to get pretty crowded, but that's what is so cool about having so many shrimp. They just absolutely decimate any piece of food you give them. Anyways, to feed the shrimp bigger food sources, I've got a way bigger tank. So I think I'm gonna go get some supplies so we can build these guys a nice little home real quick. So I drove to the store to start shopping. Since we got so many shrimp, I really wanted to spend a ton of time to choose the best decorations for these guys so they could have a beautiful home. And of course, that also meant I had to get some plants. Okay, as you guys know, I usually get my aquatic plants here at Petco, but today I want to try something different because, oh my gosh, these got to be getting more expensive. $12 for this. It's literally dead. So instead, I drove across the town to an aquarium store I had never been to. They, of course, had tons of cool stuff like this arowana.
New FanDuel Casino players get 500 bonus spins and $50 in casino.
Yo, instead of arowana, it sounds like he said marijuana. And I was about to say, they named a fish after a drug?
Which means more spins on Love Island Unlocked. So couple up with a date night boost, because thrill time is bonus time on FanDuel Casino. These views are making a comeback. The vibes are making a comeback. Book your Jamaica comeback at sandals.com.
They, of course, had tons of cool stuff, like this arowana, frogs, even this massive pleco. But, of course, they also had exactly
That sounded like gecko for a second.
what I was looking for. Ooh, yeah, this is actually perfect. And it's actually a good deal. I mean, $8 for that big plant in the back. So, yeah, I asked the store employees to bag me up some, and I brought all my supplies home. Since the tank isn't insanely large, it was quite easy to start laying everything down. We start with the
I thought that was dirty water. I was about to say, ew, is that mud?
soil, which gives the nutrients to the plants, and we cover it in a layer of sand so it won't make the water dirty. Finally, I added around some of the decorations I bought to make this place stand out a bit. Favorite decoration I bought was a pineapple from SpongeBob, but I unfortunately dropped it as I was getting it out my car, so yeah, it's kind of just in a bunch of pieces now. But I think I can still fit that in there just like that. I mean, yeah, it looks pretty cool. SpongeBob is under the water, makes sense. Then I added in all those plants I just bought and filled the thing with water. All right, there we go. Technically, this water filter at the back isn't needed since the shrimps kind of clean the water themselves, but it's still recommended, which is why I have it. But oh, we do got to get this bad boy inside. It's a light up air stone, which if you don't know what an air stone is, it's this amazing contraption that makes bubbles in the water, and this one lights up so it's extra special. Oh man, that's actually fire. I'm gonna have to get more of these, I'm not gonna lie. Anyways, this tank is now
What's the point of the bubbles? Just for decoration? Or does it actually do something?
finished and ready for all of our little shrimps to go inside. Immediately, you can just see how there is constant movement going on because of the sheer amount of shrimp. Every single little location in the tank had its own little shrimp life being lived. Now you'll see I left this little open area right here. Well, that's for us to test our next 3 food sources, and our next food source is a carrot. But yeah, they're not just gonna eat a raw carrot. It's too hard for their mouths. They can't chew it up. Instead, we gotta soften up the carrot in some boiling water just like this. And yeah, just let it cook for a couple minutes. And when the carrots are done cooking, we can bring them back to the shrimp. So I cut off a piece and plopped it straight into the tank. Now this time it was completely different than that shrimp pellet because while a couple of the shrimp sort of checked out the carrot a little bit, ultimately none of them really stayed for long enough to eat it. Come on guys, do you not like vegetables or something? Oh well, I guess they don't like carrots. But before we try the steak, I want to try one more vegetable. Let's do spinach. Now with this, I also had to boil it quickly and then I put it in the water as well. And Yeah, guys, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of disappointed by the spinach too, because even though this is so nutritious and Google said the shrimp would eat it, well, they never ate it at all. Bro, come on, I'm just convinced shrimp don't like eating vegetables at all. Yeah, let's get this trash out of here. And let's move on to our final food source, a entire steak. Well, I shouldn't say the entire steak, because that would make the water pretty dirty. So I'm just gonna cut off a little piece, just like that, and well, I'm just gonna put this in. So I put the steak in, and thankfully this time we at least got a bit of action, because after about 10 minutes you could tell they certainly weren't swarming it, but there was the occasional shrimp going on to the piece of meat, and it was kind of cool because you could see their microscopic little mouths taking tiny little bites out of the meat. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie, for being in here for 2 hours, it was a bit disappointing that they didn't eat this more. I guess with shrimp you just want to stick to the boring foods like pellets. But remember guys, as you get more expensive, the pet fish get harder to feed and crazier. Well, for the next price point, we've got a $1,000 saltwater coral tank.
Please tell me what animal is $1,000. I would love to know.
Yup, if you didn't know, coral saltwater tanks are some of the most exotic tanks you can get. But the thing is, they get extremely expensive extremely fast. That's why instead, I'm gonna buy this already set up coral tank for $200, and then I can use the rest of the budget to fill it up with way more crazy corals. And dang, look at this video the seller sent me. It already has so much fish and stuff in it. Let's go see if this is legit. So yeah, I drove out to the cellar and got the tank into my car, although there was definitely something off about it. As you can see, it's quite a bit dirty, a lot dirtier than it was listed on Facebook, and I'm pretty sure there's supposed to be fish inside, but I'm not seeing anything. We gotta get this home ASAP. So I quickly drove home and got it out at my house. Alright guys, I just got this back to my setup, and look at this. There's actually a fish inside. Yo, there's a clownfish. Do you see that? Yeah, I guess you can't really see it because it's so dirty, but yeah, let me set up all this stuff. So yeah, I first added in the extra water I had taken out to transport it. Then I put in the heater, a wave maker, a water filter, and of course the lights. And then I let it sit for a couple hours to clear up. And oh my gosh, the whole tank came alive very quickly. You could see the clownfish swimming around next to the anemone, the little shrimp constantly moving around everywhere, and there was even a literal sea urchin. I had no clue this was all going to be included in the tank. But this place would look way crazier if it had tons of rare glowing corals and stuff, so yeah.
There it is, the Google Play Point. These points get you more than a
glowing corals and stuff, so yeah, we definitely gotta go buy some of those. So I drove back out to the aquarium store where I'd bought those plants from earlier and found out they also had a massive coral section. Yo, this is sick how some of these corals glow. And look, that clownfish is checking that coral out. And also, bro, $400 for a single piece of coral, that's kind of crazy. If you didn't know, corals literally have thousands of tiny little animals called polyps that live inside of them. And in order to see them come out, I bought this big bag of coral and brought it home. Now, corals can be extremely delicate, so it's a good thing we already got this set up tank, otherwise our corals would probably die. But because this is set up, it's as simple as just dumping the water from the bags out and putting all the corals I bought inside. Then over the next hour, I slowly added water from our current tank into this temporary tray. Yeah, a lot of work, but it's definitely worth it because I started to add these corals around the tank in the places I thought would look best, and I left my camera recording so we could see them come alive. The first one I noticed movement from was this top one that we could see the little tentacles of the polyp animals on here starting to come out. And this green one also started to liven up pretty fast as well. The polyps on these corals use all these little tentacle things to eat up food, which I'll show very soon. Yo, look at these corals. They're looking sick. The only ones that haven't popped out are these two at the bottom. So I guess I'll just leave them be. And in the meantime, let's feed this tank so we can figure out how alive everything in here actually is. The fish in tanks like this love stuff called brine shrimp. Basically, you pop one of these frozen cubes in a cup of water and they completely start to thaw out into tons of tiny shrimp that you could put into the tank. Instantly, you can see how all the fish in here, like this blue damselfish, started to gulp up the food. The clownfish was also eating some of it while sticking near this anemone that had come with the tank when I bought it. If you don't know what an anemone is, well, it's actually an animal. And they have thousands of microscopic needles on their tentacles to sting and stay safe from fish. And also, they're able to move around through tanks on their own somehow. But for some reason, clownfish evolved to be immune to the stinging, so they just constantly stay near anemones so no other animals will disturb them. But interestingly, there's also these coral shrimp in here that'll eat the brine shrimp with their tiny little claws, and there's other animals which you don't need to feed, like these cool sea snails which go along the glass eating algae, and these sea urchins which do the same. Pretty cool. Finally, we can't forget to feed the corals with this stuff, and it's pretty cool to watch. Let me show you. Yeah, you can kind of just use this thing as a spray bottle under the water to shoot food at the corals. You can see how the little tentacles of the polyps react to the tasty food and close up a bit. The green one was especially cool to watch, along with this smaller green one where you could really see the little tentacle arms grabbing the food and closing it up to consume it. Dang, the ocean is actually so cool. Alright, I just got this set up in my kitchen, and stuff like the anemone is still opening up. But honestly, for $1,000, it's so cool seeing all the different life in here. I'm gonna rate this thing an 8 out of 10. But there's one type of aquatic pet that's a lot cooler than everything I've showed so far. It's time to show you guys what it's like to have a literal pet shark. Yes, sir. Now, I could go buy some sort of small baby shark species online and build a small little tank, but that would be boring. I want to see a big, fierce shark. So I hopped on a plane and flew across the country to this very fish store called Aquatics and Exotics. When I walked inside, I was immediately greeted by some absolutely insane tanks. This one had massive freshwater stingrays. This one had a super cool pig-nosed turtle that had a nose that looks like a pig. But right here at the back of the store is where the insanely massive tank that is filled to the brim with sharks is located. Yo, these sharks are crazy. Yup, this tank has 17,000 gallons of water because it contains not only this nurse shark, which like to spend most of their time chilling at the bottom of the tank, but also these two super fierce black tip reef sharks, which are known to be some of the most aggressive sharks in the world. And the craziest thing is how you feed them when they're your pets. So I got introduced to a store employee named Sky, so I could show you just that. You are kind of the one in charge of taking care of all these sharks, right?
Yep, 2 black tips and a nurse shark in here.
Dang, that is so cool. I'm on the mission to kind of find the craziest pet you can keep. Would you say keeping sharks is kind of crazy? Like, is that kind of cool?
It's definitely one up there. Not many people can say they have real sharks in their house.
For sure. But why do you have to have a tank that is so massive for these sharks?
Specifically for the black tips, they are a shark that in the wild requires to be in constant motion to get oxygen through their gills.
Yup, the black tip reef sharks in specific literally need to constantly be moving in order to get water and therefore oxygen flowing through their gills. So are these black tip sharks fully grown?
No, they're still actually young males.
Wow, so they're gonna get a lot bigger than this?
Quite, at least twice.
Oh my
the
gosh.
size.
Nah, these sharks are still gonna get twice as big. I can't even imagine what they're gonna eat when they get bigger. So I'd say I wanna see these guys eat. Can we feed these guys some food?
Yeah, absolutely. You want to see what I'm feeding them?
Yes, let's do that.
We go grab it.
So Sky brought out an absolute buffet. All right, so what are we gonna be feeding these sharks today?
So that is a light feeding. That's about 2 pounds of shrimp right there.
This is a light feeding. This is like, I couldn't even eat this all if I wanted to. Let's just get this in the tank.
Absolutely. Ready?
Yes. I even turned on my GoPro and gave it to Sky as she went behind the scenes to feed the sharks all these shrimp. You can see how she started by splashing her hand in the water to alert the sharks that it was feeding time. And then she started to stick my GoPro under the water, which surprisingly, the aggressive black tip sharks instantly found interesting because they kept swimming straight up to it almost like they wanted to swallow it. Yo, they're trying to eat my GoPro. But eventually, it was feeding time, so Sky started to toss massive handfuls of the shrimp into the tank, which, if you couldn't guess, the sharks instantly picked up the scent, and they absolutely started to annihilate these shrimp. Yo, this guy's about to gulp that shrimp up. Oh my gosh. Yo, look at all these shrimp in front of me. Oh, these sharks are just going crazy for them. But it wasn't only cool to see how the black tips move around to eat the shrimp, because Sky also showed the GoPro how she trained the nurse shark to come to the surface so she could drop pieces of shrimp in so that guy could eat as well. Dang, that is so cool to watch. Well, Sky, that was probably the coolest feeding of an aquatic pet I've ever seen. This is honestly one of the coolest pets I've ever seen.
Thank you.
Yup, seriously, thank you so much to Aquatics and Exotics for showing me these sharks. They're an awesome fish store located in...
So you didn't buy a shark, yet showed us it.
Cincinnati, Ohio. Go check them out if you're in the area.
And of course, guys, don't forget about the merch. We just dropped our first new...
Every Walmart Plus member knows free delivery helps you stay...
So he didn't even buy a shark. He just He just had someone feed it for him.
Step ahead.
The membership pays for itself.
Exotic jungles are home to some of the craziest and rarest animals ever. So that's why I'm traveling to the Costa Rican jungles to flip 100 objects to find insane ant colonies, deadly creatures, and so much more. And the trail I'm on in specific gets denser as you go on, so I'm going to be finding crazy animals by the end. But to my surprise, under literally my first rock flip, I found something really good. Oh, I've never found one of these in the wild, yo. Yup, this is a vinegaroon, an insane, almost alien-looking creature that can literally shoot acid out the end of its abdomen. And thankfully, there happened to be a wild cricket right next to it. So, of course, I took out some tweezers, I grabbed the cricket, and almost instantly, the vinegaroon snapped his claws at the cricket, and, well, it instantly started to devour it. Dang, that is pretty brutal. As I continued a bit more into the jungle, I ended up checking under and around these leaves when I found this insanely camouflaged bug. This is a katydid, and when you take a close look at its body, it literally is the same exact vein texture that leaves have. And yes, they use this insane camouflage to surprise attack other bugs and eat them alive. Yeah, the jungle is home to some of the craziest camouflage ever. But unfortunately, under object number 3, there wasn't anything. So from now on, I'm only going to show stuff that actually has cool animals. It only took until object number 5 when I was searching under these leaves and found this. I had just caught this baby assassin bug in the middle of attacking an ant. Yes, if you can't tell by the name, assassin bugs are known for how deadly they are with their venomous, proboscis mouths that they use to inject venom into their prey. And scarily enough, they sometimes will gather the corpses of their insect prey and carry them on their backs to use as a body shield. Yeah, sorry, ant, you might have met a brutal end. And interestingly, literally only about 30 seconds away, I think I found where this ant had come from. Going through the middle of the trail was a massive line of one of the most iconic ant species. These are leafcutter ants. Yep, you probably have heard about these guys before. They have mandibles that act like scissors, so they can cut little pieces of leaves off to bring back to the colony. If you look closely, you can even see that there are some of these way bigger leafcutter ants, which are the majors. These guys will help carry the bigger and heavier leaves, and will also help defend the normal workers from predators trying to attack. It's pretty cool. Anyways, as I continued on the trail, I ended up flipping object number 10, where I found a pretty weird creature. At first, all I could see was this really small white and blue bug. As I picked it up onto a leaf to get a better look, I realized that this was a butterfly. Yeah, you probably know how butterflies start out as caterpillars, and once they get big enough, they turn into a chrysalis for a few months until they finally emerge as a butterfly. But this butterfly I had found must have just emerged from its chrysalis because its wings were all curled up. So I decided to leave it be, so over the next few hours, it could develop those beautiful patterns on its expanding wings. As I continued down the rainforest trail, I found object 15, which was this tree, and on the side of it was an insane amount of flies.
Yo, I don't know if this shows up on the camera, but there was like 2,000 bugs right in front of me.
Yeah, I was honestly a bit confused on what exact type of bugs these were, and why there were so many in one area. So I of course got out the backpack, and this time I grabbed out a GoPro on a stick. This lets me safely get a close view of what was going on in here, and to my surprise, these weren't actually flies. In fact, with their yellowish color and shape, it made me think it was some sort of species of stingless bee. And what sealed the deal is when I got my GoPro closer to the side of the tree, I saw this weird entrance tunnel sticking out with a bunch of bugs flying around. Apparently, some species of stingless bees construct these super weird funnels on the side of trees that act as the entrance to the hidden hives inside the trees where they keep all their valuable stuff like honey. It is crazy what lives inside some of these jungles. As I continued down the trail, I found some of these massive leaves. What was interesting is how some of them had been absolutely decimated and completely tore up, like this one that you could barely even tell was a leaf. Some super hungry caterpillar or leafcutter ants must have come through and done this, and my suspicion was confirmed because less than a minute down the trail, I found another line of leafcutter ants. This time, they were gathering up an insanely massive pile of cut up leaves, probably from those leaves I was just at. And as I followed the line of them even more, it brought me to where their nest was. You see, leafcutter ants don't actually cut up leaves to eat them. They actually bring the leaves all the way under their nests, chew them them up meticulously and spit them back out. And over a few days, a special kind of fungus grows on the chewed up leaves that the leafcutters will then eat. So in a way, leafcutter ants basically run a massive farming operation in their nests that no one would ever suspect. But the most interesting thing I found here was this line of the leafcutter ants bringing pieces of dirt to the nest to build it even bigger. Right next to all these workers, I noticed something super insane. There was a massive queen leafcutter ant being carried by a ton of royal escort ants. And based off the fact that this queen had its wings still, it told me that these royal escort ants were taking her to a safe place for her to take flight, so that way she could find some male leafcutter ants to mate with, so then she could tear off the wings to start her very own colony. Now, the next creature I found was actually the closest call I've had to getting hurt so far, because under this leaf, I had found an absolute Goliath of a caterpillar. Unlike normal caterpillars that have smooth skin, this thing was completely covered in these soft, fuzzy white hairs. And as you can see, it had this super creepy red skin underneath. Now, I got extremely lucky that I didn't accidentally touch this thing, because I later learned that this is a flannel moth caterpillar. And under all of this...
Guys, do you like Disney Plus or TV shows like Stranger Things? How would you like to be on one?
Be one of this thing, because I later learned that this is a flannel moth caterpillar. And under all of this white fuzzy fur is thousands of microscopic venomous needles. Yes, and whenever you touch one of these caterpillars, it'll eject those needles into your skin, causing immense pain that doesn't go away for days. Phew, I dodged a bullet for sure. By this point in the jungle, I had gotten to a little section with a small river running through it. So of course, I had to get out the backpack to once again grab out my GoPro from it. Since GoPros are waterproof, it lets me stick it under the water to see what kind of life is living in here. First of all, if you look very closely, you can see there is some super small water beetles, which go around eating algae to keep the water clean. Then there was also some of these tadpoles I had found, which of course will turn into frogs sometime within a month. And also, once I stick my GoPro into the deeper part of the river, I was able to find a decent amount of fish swimming around. They move fast, so it's sort of hard to see, but if we pause at the perfect time, you can sort of make out a few of them. One of them was down here sticking to the rock, which made me think it was some sort of freshwater goby or pleco species, which both have the ability to suction the bottom of their body to rocks and rivers, so then the water won't push them around and they can just chill near the bottom. Now, just right next to where the river was, I was flipping a few rocks and ended up finding something pretty gruesome. There was a straight up pile of bones from some animal. Yeah, I'm not kidding, and these must have been pretty fresh because the tendons and tissues were still connecting these bones to a bunch of feathers. This was almost certainly a Costa Rican bird, maybe something like a hawk or an escaped farm chicken that unfortunately was attacked by a crazy puma or some other deadly predator.
Nah, there is something dangerous around here. Okay, I gotta keep my eye out.
Speaking of crazy jungle creatures, well, as I was walking down this little stretch of road, I ended up finding a vulture menacingly sitting on a pole. Yeah, vultures are the scavengers of the animal kingdom and sit still to use their insane eyesight to locate animal corpses. It will then swoop down on them and absolutely decimate whatever food is left. But it's just so creepy to me how these things have completely feathered bodies, but then they just have these bald heads that they use to stick inside the rotting corpses. Very brutal once again. And continuing on the theme of brutal finds, the next thing I found was actually what I thought was a dead spider. Yeah, I found this spider that was completely limp, and if you take a close look at it, it had a thread of silk connecting it to the leaf above. This led me to believe that it must have gone into some sort of crazy fight with another creature, and unfortunately had lost. But after thinking about it for a bit longer, it actually made more sense that this was a spider molt. Yeah, if you didn't know, every few months, some spider species will literally crawl out of their old skin like an Alien movie once they've outgrown it, and it can sometimes just look like they've left a body behind, but in reality, the spider is still living happily in the forest. So hopefully we'll see some moving ones soon. Anyways, the next creature I found was actually something pretty funny, because as I was walking along the trail, I noticed a little white and green thing moving along the floor. But quickly, I realized that this was another one of those leafcutter ants. But this dude happened to be carrying a little plant stem that was like 5 times longer than its body, and he was having a lot of trouble trying to move it since it was a lot bigger than him. It was funny because I could literally just pick up this ant by the plant stem, and I figured I should just help him out, so I moved him a bit in the direction he was headed in.
Alright, just wanted to move you a little closer to your target, buddy.
Now you see, by this point, I had spent so long on the trail that the sun was starting to set, meaning it was now night. This means I'm not even gonna have to to flip rocks to find stuff anymore, since all the crazy nocturnal animals are just gonna be out and about since it is nighttime. And that was instantly proven because along the very first tree I checked, I saw this. It's a bark mantis, which of course is a praying mantis that are known for how deadly they are to other insects. But yeah, it just has the texture of bark so it can camouflage a bit better. But very interestingly, this is the perfect display of how this camouflage is needed, because right above this mantis was a yellow-headed gecko. Now, big mantises are known to take down and eat lizards. This mantis was certainly too small to do that. Right now, the only thing keeping this mantis alive from being eaten is its camouflage. Speaking of mantises, as I continued down the trail, the next cool creature I found was another mantis. Yep. But this was a much more iconic species. It's a tropical shield mantis.
Bro, this is so cool how much this guy camouflages. I mean, his back literally looks exactly like a leaf.
Yep, this is probably some of the most impressive camouflage because while their body stands out a lot to potential predators, well, they have these massive leaf shields on their back so that when they're turned away, you basically cannot even tell that they're there. Oh yeah, and did I mention that these things have wings? I don't know why everything I find is so cool. But little did I know, I was just getting started because only a few minutes later, as I was scanning around some of the branches in this tree, I noticed what almost looked like some sort of moving vine. But in fact, this was actually my very first snake find of the trip. We can tell based off how extremely thin its body is and the shape of its head that this is a blunt-headed tree snake. These things are honestly cute with their massive eyes, and also they don't attack humans. They just slither through the branches looking for stuff to eat, like these frog eggs I had found earlier. But yeah, they're honestly nothing compared to some of the snakes I'll be finding later into the night. Now, my luck must have been insane during this night because the very next creature I found was just chilling on the side of some stairs on the trail. It was a tailless whip scorpion. If you're a fan of my channel, you may already know these things since I've had them in videos before. What was so insane about this guy is that it had something in its claws that it was eating. After zooming in a ton, I got a close look to see that there was some sort of stinger in its grasp. This could only mean one thing. So I took out the backpack, and from inside I grabbed out a UV light. If you didn't know, certain animals like scorpions glow under UV light, and when I shined my UV light at this tailless whip scorpion, the very thing it was eating, of course, started to glow. That meant that the stinger it was holding was actually the stinger of a baby scorpion. And this tailless whip scorpion had somehow caught it and was devouring it up. Oh my gosh, I had no clue these things ate scorpions. That is so cool. Now, the next interesting animal I came across in the night was actually this big nest on the side of a tree. After getting a closer look, I realized that this was a black crazy ant nest. These guys are called crazy ants because, well, when I touched their nest to simulate a threat of danger, you can tell how they absolutely started to swarm that area super fast like a bunch of crazy people, even though there wasn't actually a real threat there. Don't let their small size fool you. They're known for taking down prey way bigger than themselves with teamwork. By this point in the trail, I had gotten to this small little abandoned pool area that I noticed had tons of tadpoles swimming around inside of it. But very interestingly, right on top of this cloth cover above the pool, I had found the most iconic frog in the world, the red-eyed tree frog. Yes, these guys can actually be quite rare to find in the wild since they only lay their eggs in still bodies of water. So you won't find them nearby flowing rivers and creeks, so it sort of makes sense that we found them near this abandoned pool, and it's likely that the rest of these tadpoles in here will also turn into these amazing frogs one day. Now, the next couple finds all rapid fire. First of all, there's this little katydid bug that had caught a roach and was eating it alive. Then there's this super tiny stick insect on a leaf. That, of course, looks like a stick for camouflage. Nice. Right after, I found this way bigger stick insect of a slightly different species hanging onto a branch. You can tell this one was a winged stick insect based off its thicker body shape. Also, when I got my hand close enough, it all of a sudden flashed its bright orange wings at me like a flashbang and flew away. Dang, these things actually look like a bird when they fly away with their wings. That's pretty cool. I was seriously finding so much camouflage stuff in the jungle this night, like this thing. It may just look like an ordinary lizard at first, but it's actually a helmeted iguana. Not only do they have this sick head shape that just sort of looks like a chameleon's head shape, but they also have the ability to change the color of their skin just like a chameleon. Yep, you see how this one has a green body to match the leaf it's on? Well, only a few few minutes later, as I was scanning through the branches nearby, I found another one of these iguanas. This time it was brown, even though it too was hanging onto a green object, so I don't know why I chose to be brown. It's kind of a bad color to choose, but anyways, still pretty cool, and yes, they actually do change your color. Now, by this point in the trail, I was dead set on finding one of the many deadly venomous snakes that Costa Rica is filled with. So I passed up literally every boring little bug or even spider that I found to keep searching. And by some stroke of luck, right at the end of the trail, I came across this small dirty pond. After looking around it, there of course was a snake. I couldn't tell what exact species it was at first though, so after putting a zoom attachment up to my camera, it let me see that this was a fer-de-lance pit viper, the most dangerous snake in all of Costa Rica. It was a good thing that this thing was on the opposite side of the pond from me, because they have these massive hollow fangs that if you're unlucky enough to get bit by, inject a potent venom into you. And yeah, this dude was just staring directly at me. This is the perfect reminder why you gotta be so careful recording these videos. Anyways, I was pretty much at the end of the trail by this point, and the final two animals I found, thankfully, were pretty cool. Because first of all, there's this giant fishing spider floating on the water. These guys will wait for fish to swim under them, and then swim under the water to attack them. It's pretty crazy. But even cooler than that was this massive sleeping basilisk lizard sitting on a branch above the water. You see, these guys have a special name in Costa Rica. They're called the Jesus Christ lizard. Because like Jesus Christ, who can walk on water, these lizards can do the same exact thing when they're in a life or death scenario. Their feet are designed in a special way to repel water, and when they move extremely fast, they can kind of just defy the laws of physics and yeah, literally just walk in the water. But of course, since this guy was sleeping, I didn't want to disturb him, so I just left him be. Well, this was probably the most successful rock flipping video I've had, and even though most of the stuff I found wasn't even through rock flipping, hopefully still found it interesting how much insane wildlife there is.
Yes, sir. Let me know, guys, where I should go next to flip rocks in the world. Also, as of today, there's super big news in.
Hopefully enjoyed today's video. If y'all did, make sure y'all like and subscribe. Also, go subscribe to Terra Green. His content is actually really cool. There we go. Anyways, that being said, stay happy, healthy, stay beautiful, stay safe, most importantly to yourself. Love y'all, and peace.